Okay, let's jump right in. What you're about to hear is, hands down, the most dramatic survival story in Silicon Valley history. In this explainer, we're going to unpack exactly how a dying graphics company, literally teetering on the edge of total collapse, somehow became the invisible engine running the modern world. I mean, $4.2 trillion. Let that scale sink in for a second. That valuation makes NVIDIA more valuable than Apple, more valuable than Microsoft, and, get this, bigger than the GDP of 185 entire countries. They are the absolute, undisputed heavyweight champion of the tech world right now. But the real whiplash here is the timeline. Because if we rewind back to just 1996, the entire tech industry was laughing at them. They were quite literally dimming their office lights just to shave a few bucks off the electricity bill. They were sitting on a terrifying 30 days of cash, 30 days left to survive. Section 1, the $4 trillion miracle. Let's understand this invisible engine. At the absolute heart of this miracle is the wild demand we put on modern silicon. You know, every time you tap to unlock your phone, or shoot a blaster in a video game, or even just pinch to zoom on a map, there is a chip working behind the scenes. It's an invisible brain rendering real-time physics and lighting for every single pixel on your screen. And the sheer scale of the math here is just mind-bending. To smoothly play a modern game, like, say, Call of Duty, your system is tracking bullets, explosions, dynamic shadows, smoke, the whole shebang all at once. To do that seamlessly, the chip has to pull off over 36 trillion calculations every single second. 36 trillion, it is a staggering amount of math.
Which brings us to Section 2, a non-obvious insight. The gaming gamble.
So back in 1995, the tech world was totally obsessed with, boring business servers and spreadsheets. Venture capitalists basically looked at video games as kids' toys, a total waste of top engineering talent. But NVIDIA's founder, Jensen Huang, well, he saw something completely different. His true brilliance was this non-obvious insight that literally nobody else believed in. He was paying close attention to the incredibly brutal, complex math behind the madness of 3D gaming. Jensen knew that if his team could build a chip powerful enough to handle the blistering, unpredictable chaos of a 3D video game with zero lag, they could eventually build chips for absolutely anything. Think about it. If a chip can survive a digital battlefield, it's going to easily thrive in rendering flight paths for rockets, processing real-time data for robotics, or even simulating medical outcomes. Section 3, 30 days from bankruptcy. The DirectX War. Okay, so in 1995, NVIDIA launches their very first chip, the NV1. It was supposed to be pure magic, but they immediately crashed headfirst into a massive, lethal roadblock created by Microsoft. See, Microsoft had just established this standard called DirectX. They told game developers, look, you have to use digital Lego blocks, specifically low-poly triangles, to build your Windows games. But NVIDIA, their architectures stubbornly relied on high-poly quadratic curves to get maximum realism. It was an absolute catastrophic mismatch. Microsoft locked the door, and NVIDIA had built the completely wrong key. Since game devs were forced to follow Microsoft's rules, out of the 250,000 NV1 units NVIDIA actually managed to sell, an agonizing 249,000 were returned by distributors. Their biggest client tore up their contract, and this massive failure pushed NVIDIA exactly 30 days away from total, irreversible bankruptcy. Section 4. The first GPU revolution. The impossible gamble. So with the cash completely drying up, Jensen makes a madman's decision. Build a brand new chip without actually testing it on physical hardware first. Now, computer chip is basically a microscopic city with billions of tiny connections. Normally, you test that endlessly, but Jensen literally bet the entire company on a 3D software simulation. They beamed the design straight to the manufacturing plant and waited 8 agonizing weeks. If even a single microscopic logic gate was misrouted in that software, they'd just mass-produce 1 million broken chips, and NVIDIA would be dead. But against all odds, when the chips finally arrived and they hit the power button, flawless miracle. The chip, called the Riva 128, worked perfectly. It became the world's first fully hardware-accelerated 3D rendering pipeline. It was blazing fast, developers were obsessed with it, and it shipped 1 million units in just 4 months, totally sparking the rebirth of the company. Fast forward to 1999, and NVIDIA introduces the GeForce 256, the world's very first GPU, or graphics processing unit. And here is why that is such a huge deal. While the traditional CPU handles a few complex tasks sequentially, one right after another, a GPU is a master of parallel processing. It handles thousands of simple tasks all at the exact same time. It's kind of like painting a massive mural all at once with 1,000 brushes, rather than stroke by stroke. This is what finally allowed games to render shadows, bullets, and explosions simultaneously in real time. Section 5, 10 years too early. Welcome to the CUDA wilderness. So now they're the kings of gaming. But in 2006, Jensen takes another massive risk, pouring all his profits into something the world didn't even know it needed yet, CUDA. CUDA was this magical programming model that effectively transformed these graphics chips into world-changing calculation engines. Suddenly, scientists, engineers, and researchers could harness that massive parallel processing power for absolutely anything, from simulating global disease outbreaks to mapping a rocket's trajectory to Mars. But there's a really harsh reality to being that visionary. For 6 long years, CUDA was viewed as a massive, embarrassing failure. Why? Well, modern AI didn't really exist yet, and algorithms were pretty simple. Jensen had basically handed the world a blistering supercomputer when all anyone really needed was a pocket calculator. It was literally like inventing the rocket engine before humans even wanted to go to space. Section 6. The AI Spark. The AlexNet Climax. After 6 agonizing years of waiting, the breakthrough finally hits in 2012. In a quiet lab up at the University of Toronto, some researchers decided to try and teach a computer how to see like a human. They didn't use a massive $1 million supercomputer, they just used an NVIDIA GPU powered by CUDA. They fed it millions of images, and on September 30th, 2012, their AI model, named AlexNet, entered the biggest AI competition in the world and literally obliterated everyone else. It wasn't even close. That victory was the absolute climax of NVIDIA's journey. AlexNet proved 3 massive things to the world, overnight. First, AI can actually learn and recognize patterns if you just give it enough data. Second, NVIDIA's GPUs are the absolute perfect brain for that kind of parallel training. And third, that software platform from 2006, CUDA, that was the secret sauce making all of this computing magic possible. Suddenly, the entire tech sector woke up and realized what Jensen had seen 6 years earlier. This single event sparked the modern AI revolution. Giants like Google, Facebook, Tesla, and OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, they all hard pivoted. They built their massive computing platforms directly on the back of NVIDIA GPUs and CUDA. Almost overnight, NVIDIA became the foundational, undisputed backbone for every single major AI platform on planet Earth. And honestly, that crazy journey perfectly aligns with Jensen's own perspective on his company. From dimming the lights just to survive a 30-day cash crunch to becoming a $4 trillion juggernaut, his relentless, unshakable belief in his life's work turned a near-death failure into literally the most powerful company in existence today. Which leaves us with one incredibly fascinating thought to consider as we wrap up this explainer. NVIDIA survived by building the architecture to render incredibly complex virtual worlds. But now that they have the raw computing power to simulate and understand our actual reality, what impossible future are they going to build for us next?